There's tons of articles from good authors regarding AI, but the problem is that you never really know whether they discuss the technology per se or what you can use it for. And I think what the majority of our viewers are interested in is how can I apply AI in my tasks. And I would actually recommend anyone to just.
All right, we're live on another episode of Life Sciences 360, and today I have with me Marcus Emne. He is the CEO of Hoodin, joining us from Sweden. And Hoodin is a intelligence platform for compliance within life sciences. So I'm really excited to have Marcus on the show. Thank you, Marcus, for joining.
Thank you for having me. It's truly a pleasure.
I want to start by asking you, I love the concept or what your platform stands for, because I'm very passionate about data and analytics and intelligence, because it's often a topic that we don't know much how to get data outside of a company. So from my understanding, your product helps professionals do that and in a very digestible format. So what inspired you to start Hoodin? Like what made you build out the first version of that platform?
How much time do we have?
90 seconds.
So no, but the long story short, really, I really, since a long time ago, I wanted to solve the cumbersome issue with repeated research and stay up to date regarding various topics for my own sake as well. There are so many things that I'm interested in, and so many things that I need to stay up to date with, and that's an issue that I've been trying to tackle for quite some years, really. The reason why Hoodin is what it is today, us entering into life sciences, was that we recognized that the way and the technique that is being applied by platforms such as Google News Readers or Cision or Meltwater or other news surveillance services doesn't really work, because it's so important that the results has the highest possible level of relevance. There are no rooms for mistakes when it comes to regulatory updates or vigilance and the adverse events and so on. So we realized that we need to be much more needs-centric, and that we have to understand and look into the specific industries that we want to address. And it all started with life sciences for many good reasons, really.
That's very interesting, Marcus. What I wanted to ask you is, I know that you started the company in 2014 and had the first version of the product out there in 2014. How is Hoodin different today than it was back then? Like, what are some significant changes to the platform that you've made throughout that last 9 years?
Oh, yeah, it's 100% different. So, and first of all, the company was started in 2014, and we didn't really start to work commercially on the concept until 2017, 2018. So those first years, it was just a piece of paper, really, and we didn't do much more than some R&D stuff. And I was occupied with other things at that time. But even compared to what Hoodin was in 2017, 2018, with the first versions of the platform being released, it was more like a Swiss Army knife. It was good at a lot of things, but not really great at anything. And one mistake that we did in the early days was that we focused mainly on, I wouldn't say it's a mistake though, because you have to solve certain core functionalities first and then expand. But we focused a little bit too much upon only the monitoring and retrieving part, fixing that part of the technology. And of course, that is the core. I mean, you need to be able to set up a monitoring with your keywords and select sources and so on, and have the machinery in the background running. But we didn't focus so much on the entire process, and we didn't consider that as much as we should have done, which is that you need to validate the sources, select your matching words, retrieve the information. But then once it's retrieved, the reason why you collect information for intelligence purpose is that you, your team, or even third party will use that information to make decisions. And just gathering it is simply not enough.
Yep. Agreed. And you brought up a good point that the whole reason why anybody's trying to collect information is so that they can look at it and make, I don't want to use the buzzwords like fact driven decisions or data driven decisions, but that's what it is, trying to use the information to make the decisions. You mentioned at the start that there were some challenges with platforms like Google Trends or Session or these other data monitoring tools. So, and you said they weren't fit for life sciences. So, from your perspective, what are some of the common challenges that life science companies face when they're trying to monitor content for a specific business purpose?
I mean, if we take an average medical device company, SME, and we ran a huge survey last year and asking them exactly this: what is your key hurdles when it comes to vigilance or surveillance or keeping up to date on specific topics and areas? And 45% of the respondents told us that finding the correct information is really the biggest hurdle. So they don't really know where to find regulatory updates from Singapore or Thailand or San Marino or Bulgaria and so forth. So that's one issue. And the other hurdle, the second largest one, is that a lot of people within regulatory affairs and quality assurance believe that management or that third party receiver often have a hard time to understand, or their perception is actually that management don't seem to care or understand. And when we digged into that, we realized that it's a communication issue. It's not about not caring or not understanding. It's very hard for third party to interpret and really digest into that information when they receive it, if it's not prepared properly.
Okay. And when you said that from the survey that you did, where the subject matter experts or the stakeholders said that finding the right information was one of the hurdles.
Yeah.
So, how does Hoodin, the platform, you don't have to go too much technical, but just for like a life science user or not anybody listening to the show, how does your platform help a user gather specific data? So, you can maybe share an example of somebody that wants to know about a specific regulation or a specific market or a country. How does your platform help them keep an eye on that information?
I'll give you two examples because they are different methods, or the method is the same, but how we use that method might differ depending on the need area. So a common need would be that I need to stay up to date with regulatory updates. And we sell our product on 50 markets. Hence, I would need to stay up to date with news from 50 legal health authorities regarding regulations, guidelines, and directives, which is quite a cumbersome work if you do it manually. And you're also facing a risk of knowing late, worst case. So that's one scenario. And what happens is that the user would simply select those countries, only them, because you, at the same time, you don't want to, if you're not selling in France, you don't want to by mistake receive information about regulatory updates, and you have no intention of selling there. And by mistake, you might interpret that this is a regulation from Belgium, and you communicate that out to your organization. So with Hoodin, you would only monitor those 50 legal health authorities from those 50 countries regarding exactly what you need: guidelines, directives, and regulations maybe. And you can go even further, so that you would like to monitor that, not to receive everything, because maybe you're selling a dental medical device. Then you would like to only monitor mentions when the word dental is being within, or whatever topic you would like to have. And you could put up several monitoring feeds and say, I would like to have dental in one, and then I would like to monitor post-market surveillance and know about what's new about that for another monitoring feed. So that's how we help them, and how you make the selection of sources to keep the relevance really high. And then we retrieve the articles, and you as a user would be able to provide them with attributes and prepare them for third-party receiver, such as giving them tags and adding comments and so on. The other example would be that you have a need related to post-market surveillance or pharmacovigilance, which is very cumbersome. And you should do this in a systematic approach, and you shouldn't really wait at the end of the year or just when you're about to have an audit. It can happen all the time if you use the right technology. Rather than doing a big chunk of work just before an audit. So in that case, you would select adverse events from markets where your product might receive an adverse event. You would monitor literature. You would monitor clinical studies. You could also then, and the set of sources, the ones that you select the method would be the same, but obviously you would select databases and journals that contains scientific literature regarding your type of device or the disease area that you're helping out with. But then we have unsolicited reporting as well. And that could be from social media or forums. And in that case, you would select actually then social media. So you want to know if anyone mentioned you on Twitter, you want to know why. Is it so that this is a patient that is having a problem?
Interesting. Yeah, thank you for walking us through some of those examples. It sounds like there's multiple dimensions to how you can capture information, whether it's keywords or country-specific regulations. So I want to ask you, can you share any, again, you don't have to share any confidential details about the company or businesses, but can you share any success stories or case studies before and after from a client or a company that used your platform, and what was the significant benefit that they saw once they started using Hoodin?
I think what all of them says is that they feel relieved. Some might be scared in the beginning, like, okay, so you're gonna automate everything like this. That means that we might need to drop a team member because we made such a great efficiency or made ourselves more efficient. But on the other hand, what they very soon realize is that, okay, but we can move time and effort from the cumbersome manual search work to the analysis and working towards the business organization instead. So what most of them said, I would say all of them, is that they can feel more relaxed knowing that they're not missing out on vital information, and they know that there is a process running 24/7, and when anything shows up, it gets to them. It's like a radar, having the radar out there and beep, beep, beep. Yeah, got you. So, and that is something that everyone is mentioning. And looking at other things that we often hear is that usually regulatory affairs or quality assurance teams, which are the ones that we address the most, can have a feeling that they are a little bit, not so hyped or cool within the organization, and that they often come with trouble or costs or bad news, and that they are not so modern in the way they run their operations. But when they have Hoodin in place and they can invite other people from their organization as members to get constant, immediate updates from the regulatory affairs teams with their small comments, all of a sudden they are perceived as very modern, with a very innovative technology that runs a vital part of their operations. And that is something that they appreciate a lot in internal marketing, maybe.
Yeah, talking about appreciating a lot, that kind of goes into my next question. Anytime as a user you use any platform, whether it's social media, LinkedIn, or any like business platform, there are some features that maybe one user thinks, oh, I wish this platform had this feature. And on the other side, there are some features that are game changers, right? Like people will just get your product because of one or two features that nobody else has. So talking about appreciating a lot, are there any like very cool features of Houdin that your clients or people, that companies that use, have said, wow, this is just an incredible feature that you have in this tool?
Good question. I don't think, really, I don't think there is a specific feature that people like more than another. I think it's the holistic approach that you have everything gathered in one. And I used to say that a digital or a software is never better than its worst feature. So
Yeah.
our ambition is rather to have everything on an equal level, more or less, and not forget about a part of the platform that people might not use that often, but when they use it, it should be very good. But rather than the feature, what people appreciate and like is the flexibility of being able to monitor regulations, but also standards in the same platform. And yeah, maybe what they like is the collaborative approach. So once you have all the articles, like, okay, so there's an update regarding labeling in Belgium. I'll invite our Belgium distributor as a member, which is always free, just to be able to raise a question, because the person's being, responsible, or the project owner for a Hoodin project, they might not know everything and how to interpret and use regarding a certain market, but they have the responsibility to make sure that we get the information, but then they can use the entire organization to ask for advices.
Yep.
So that is something that is very appreciated. And I think one of the most appreciated features will probably be the one that we're about to launch in just a couple of days from now, or maybe a couple of weeks. We never reveal the exact date of a launch, because you never know. It might be some last minute changes or testing. But that is that we're going to start using AI in a much higher extent than we've done before, where we will let AI summarize and provide an executive summary and also advisory upon a finding.
Really, really nice. I know a tool that does that I use for going and reading a lot of articles. So I think I've just given out one of my biggest secrets here, but
Yeah.
I can see why you're going down that road, and it's going to be really helpful.
Yeah.
Especially if you're reading an article or research paper, to go through that and give it everybody likes TLDR. Nobody wants to read 20 pages.
Exactly.
They just want to know the summary. So
yeah.
So you kind of steered this discussion into another topic by mentioning artificial intelligence. So I want to ask you, you are already working on this feature, but in general, how do you, I know you also wrote an article or a post about this on LinkedIn about how artificial intelligence is going to be helping regulatory affairs and quality assurance professionals be more efficient and get more information. How do you see that evolving in the next 5 or 10 years?
Oh, it's going to be so different, really so different. AI can do a lot of things, and there's a couple of things that AI can't do very good currently. It might change over time. I don't know. AI cannot search the internet. AI cannot help you stay up to date. There's always a backlog where AI might, uh, complete over time, and might become so efficient that it will be able to look real time data. But I think we're a couple of years from there. But the way it's going to change it is that it can certainly do things like preparing documents, writing whatever document that needs to be submitted. But where we're focusing on is the summary part, recognizing patterns. Are there any risks mentioned in this article, or depending on how I would like to have the text analyzed by the AI. AI can. What I also foresee is that AI can help you. I don't know really how to explain this without becoming very blurry what I envision. But there are so many operations within regulatory and quality affairs where you have so many documents that needs to be updated and so many documents that needs to be created. And let's put it this way. I think that AI will be able to help you both to create those documents, not entirely, but chunks of it, and also help you to make the correct updates in the correct timely manner. Really, that's big picture what I think. Which will, the professional RA/QA person will still need to be there. It needs to be revised. You can never really trust an AI because they might get it wrong. If the command to the AI is not executed in a way as an AI needs to have it. AI is like a dog, it can only understand the exact commands, or it can understand other commands, but it starts guessing and it doesn't become really good. So getting trained in how to run those queries towards an AI and use the right commands, that's going to be quite of a challenge for a lot of people. Sorry, long answer on the short question, but it's a huge question. I'll bet that in 5 to 10 years from now, it will look completely different. So my biggest advice to anyone in life science, which is running a function that is information heavy, is to start now to get familiar with AI. Play around with ChatGPT or what's not, and learn about what is AI really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you actually touched on even another question that I wanted to ask you, which was, what are some of the pros and cons or benefits and drawbacks of AI? And you mentioned that it can't really search real-time information. I mean, you can still go to a real-time article or a regulation or something and use that URL and then use another AI tool to say, hey, summarize this content at this URL. So I mean, you can still use AI to get, but there's not like a one-stop Google search where AI can just get everything in real time for you. Maybe Google's going to modify its search algorithm and do something where it changes. But that's one part that I feel like is going to be just not game changing for life sciences, but for literally any internet user.
Absolutely.
That is going today to search on Google only gets results that are based on relevance or the SEO rankings and stuff like that, but they're not like exact answers of what the person wants. So a lot of times you see results on the top and having good SEO is not something, it's not easy. It takes a lot of time to build. So yeah, I think that's a big area. I've seen a lot of people also talk about in tech that the day it changes the way we search, that's going to be a huge benefit for any internet user.
Yeah, I completely agree. And most likely, Google is of course putting a lot of effort into this. But what Google can't do, and I think they will, maybe they will release something completely different. But as a user, I often want to compare or combine several texts, several articles. I want to see a trend. I want to see signals. I want to have an executive summary of several articles, and look for deviation. This one is, mentioning this. Why is it so? And run a little bit more complex queries to the AI rather than just compromise and summarize an article.
Okay. And from your experience, have you seen any other tools or any other use cases within RAQA with the companies that you work with where they are using AI, or you still haven't seen they're still on the fence about going for it?
I have not. I assume a lot of people are scratching their heads and trying out different applications with AI. But it's so young. Honestly, it's just a couple of months old since ChatGPT was re- launched for the broader audience, where people start to realize that this isn't so bad after all. We've been looking into this for years, so we're well prepared. But back to your question, I haven't seen anyone using it, but I mean, of course, QMS systems could definitely have a good use of AIs inside. Um, so yeah, there's just too many opportunities really to bring up here today.
Yeah, and QMS is obviously one of the most important ones that can affect a lot of different areas. So including some features in there. And again, maybe we'll see electronic QMS systems with AI features in the coming years. But yeah, I think that's a good area to start with because it affects a lot of different business groups within a company. So when you were saying that anybody who's in RAQA or in life sciences should really start exploring opportunities to use AI or learning. So what are some of do you know of any resources or anything that you can share for individuals who want to learn more about this topic and get familiar, just the conceptual understanding of what AI is?
There's tons of articles from good authors regarding AI, but the problem is that you never really know whether they discuss the technology per se or what you can use it for. And I think what the majority of our viewers are interested in is how can I apply AI in my tasks. And I would actually recommend anyone to just think of certain queries or questions you would ask yourself, or that you need to deal with a lot of times, and go in and try ChatGTP and raise those questions to ChatGTP and see what happens. Take some texts and run there and ask ChatGTP to do certain thing with that text. Look for a pattern, signal detection, summarize, or what else, and just play around with it. And I think that's actually the best way to start. And then when you have your arms around how to use the tool, and it's very simple, then go ahead and read some of the parts of from the knowledge base that you can see at OpenAI, which is the company behind ChatGPT. So go into OpenAI and learn from their knowledge base. They have a lot of good white papers and case studies regarding AI.
Yeah, they have really good documentation. I forget what it was, but there was one article that they had posted about how to how to train the outputs that you're getting from AI, and they had explained like the whole logic behind it of how Chat GPT works, and anybody could read that and understand what's going on. So that's really good. And again, another area is just like standard business software. So I know Microsoft is one of the biggest players in enterprise applications with products like Outlook and Teams and different Word, PowerPoint. So that's another area. If Microsoft goes and embeds AI into all these different applications, just because of their existing customer base in a lot of, I would I would hope, my guess is like the top 80 or 90% of Fortune companies use Microsoft. So if they just put AI in there, that's going to be, responding to an email. AI can read like all the last 5, 6 conversations, and you just hit a button and say yes or no or maybe, whatever prompt, and then AI writes the response for you or summarizes a team meeting notes or action items.
Exactly. There's
Yeah.
yeah. I think that will happen during this year, really.
Yep.
And we see natural language processing is has been long for quite some years now, and we see that Google, if you use Gmail, I'm not an Outlook user, but I assume that they also propose how you should continue your sentence and so on, and often they are correct, and it's getting better and better every day because it is being trained with your behavior and everyone else. And just as you said, I think from reading a lot more, being able to read much bigger chunks of texts and draw conclusions for bigger data sets, it will be able to provide you with so much more. And I'm old enough to remember the times when Microsoft had this very annoying gem, clip holder, or dog, was it, that knocked on your screen? Hey, it looks like you're trying to write an email. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember
Okay,
that.
so for your older viewers, you know what I'm talking about. A
Yeah.
paperclip or a dog that knocked on the screen from the inside, obviously, asked you questions. And it was so stupid. It was so dumb. So everyone wanted to get rid of this. But Microsoft and everyone else has had dreams about good conciliar features in their main softwares, and now finally it is happening.
Yeah, this is just a great conversation. We can talk about this all day,
Yeah.
but I want to wrap this up. So I want to ask you a couple of closing questions. What advice do you have for other entrepreneurs or people working in this space for building software products for any sort of content monitoring or data analysis? What can you share from your journey for them?
To really understand how the customer work, or how your target segment, how they work today. If you haven't been in that position yourself, make sure that you recruit a handful of your target segments, and don't only ask them questions. You need to observe them. I mean, looking at the second largest pain that our users tell us, which is management don't listen, that we would never have gotten there if we weren't observing them, asking them questions in the surroundings of our core product, which is the monitoring and intelligence part, but starting to think about, okay, so then what? And then what? So finding those segments, or your persona users, and recruit them and start to observing them and talk about the entire value chain. So because most likely your software will only do this part, but you need to learn the entire process and value chain, but also the surroundings. What are the adjacent functions, and how is information distributed back and forward to where your chunk is being active. Those would be the two most important things, I think.
Yeah, and this space is really going to be growing so fast because just the amount of information we have at our fingertips that, like we said at the start of the episode, converting that information to knowledge or making it into a format where you can make a decision, you can't do that if you don't understand how your users are doing that today without technology, right? So if you understand how they're thinking or what kind of questions they're asking or what answers they're looking from their data, only then you can build that into a software product to sort of give them leverage by using technology to do those functions. So yeah, I completely agree with you on that. What do you like doing outside of work when you're not talking to your team or discussing features and enhancements on your product?
I think the wall behind me reveals that what's hanging there. That's just one of them. There are a couple more.
Oh, right there. Yeah, I see it.
So yeah, trying to live the dream of one day becoming a rock star. It's never too late.
Yeah.
Look at Rolling Stones; they're still going, and they're past 80. So I have several years to to practice.
So any big goals you have, personal or for Houdin in 2023?
Yeah, we have a lot of goals, both in terms of volume of users and our growth ambitions. And that is one other advice I would like to give, by the way, to any startups and so on. Make sure that you also can have a minimal viable business in place, so that you know how much they will pay, how urgent is it for them to pay. And those are things that are really hard to balance off when you're so product focused and you really want to bring the technology to the world. But start thinking about the revenues early on, and push yourselves to have a paying client early on. But for ours, I mean, we feel that the platform is rather mature now, but we're far from satisfied with new smart features that we want to bring on board. So we have a lot of those in mind. But the continuous growth, we're growing at a good speed right now. Um, so that's for sure one thing, and helping as many life science companies as possible to really streamline their processes regarding vigilance and intelligence to stay compliant. Um, so that's one thing, and uh, I have to think a little bit before I say something because we're a public company, so I can't really reveal any financial targets or something like that. But just continue growing with high quality in mind. Um, we're keen to understand every user's current situation. It's super important to us. And we don't only do that because it's part of our quality. We are seriously interested in everyone because we really love life science.
That's great. Yeah, I learned a lot about your thinking and the way you look at these things and how you've built your product. So this was a great conversation. Where can people find you just to connect with you or exchange ideas or maybe work for Houdin? Do you want to? Where can people get to you?
They can either send me an email, which is Marcus, spelled with a C, at hoodin.com. Hook up with me on LinkedIn. If you're interested in knowing more about Hoodin, just go to hoodin.com, request a demo, which would start with a discovery call where you meet with one of our experts to really look into what your specific need would be. Because the need is broader than just we need to stay up to date. Yeah, but also how do you distribute this further in the organization and so on. And we'll talk about that and we'll set up a trial and anyone can take Hoodin for a test drive for 14 days free of charge. But reaching out to me, send an email, Marcus at hoodin.com or hook up on LinkedIn and send me a message. I'm open to talk, absolutely. And we're hiring as well. So there's plenty of reasons to connect with us.
Yeah, and that's how I think we got connected was over on LinkedIn. I don't remember how, but somehow we exchanged messages and had a conversation. So I'm really glad that
I probably
yeah.
tried to sell you something.
No, that's fine. I mean, I also work in life sciences as a consultant. So at any point, I get a lot of people reaching out to me, talking about their products. And I always offer a very unbiased recommendation to any of my clients. I don't get any uh, kickbacks from any of the products that I look at. But if something is great, I think a user would know the value of that product. I don't need to talk about it, or nobody needs to sell something if it's valuable. People know what they need, and
yeah, and we're really helpful for you to help us spread the word about Hoodin because we're a rather young company and quite unknown brand, but we can help a lot, and we want to help really
yeah.
To make every regulatory affairs and quality assurance team on Earth becoming a little bit smarter, a little bit faster, a little bit cooler.
Yeah, that sounds great. Any final thoughts you want to add before we wrap this up?
I think your question has been really great, and as you said during the recording here, that we could continue to talk for hours because we're touching upon really broad areas, and there's so much more to say. So maybe we can run a follow up sometime later this year to see where how it has panned out and what is new. I mean, we could talk about the same topic and just say, okay, what has happened in the last 6 months? And I bet, well, we would have plenty to talk about.
Yeah, I agree. So thank you again so much for coming on to the show. I really loved having this conversation. Wish you all the best with everything in your personal goals and also with Houdin. And we'll always stay in touch or exchange ideas on LinkedIn. I know you're pretty active, and so am I. So we'll, talk to you there.
Thanks for being here today. It's been really interesting, and likewise, love talking to you. So I'll hope for a comeback sometime soon later this year.
Yeah, it'll be soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.